Morning guys, welcome back to VALORANT News. The schedule has officially been revealed for Champions Paris. We get to see who's going to play and when in the opening rounds of the tournament after the group stages were officially confirmed as well, and the big matches that are coming up, but also major drama with the VCT next year. Rumours emerging that BBL esports might be gone from competitive Valorant. What's going to happen there if this does come true? Which organisation might come through instead? Is this even real? Some big speculation on the matter today. Very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I greatly appreciate it. Plenty to get into today. Thought this is pretty funny. G2 Valorant played professionally, then retired, became a caster, then a podcast host, and he still won the Americas before half the league. So here's Baby Bay with his trophy, and well, he was enjoying time with his trophy, as you can see. It's still 7 a.m, he says, and then he was drinking some cereal straight out of the trophy. So look, not many players ever get the opportunity to do anything like this, so I suppose he better enjoy it. And of course, we think he is going to be out there with the guys in Paris to give G2 the support they need, and who knows, maybe they'll need to step in, at some point. Maybe, maybe not. They're hoping not. They can keep Leaf, but, I don't think Baby Bay is going anywhere from that team anytime soon. This is interesting. Mini Jake, of course, former Fnatic top guy, and as he says, had a lot of fun this year working EMEA, thanks to all the talented people supporting me. Big decisions to make for next year. In the meantime, there might be some coal that needs shoveling, he says. So, and he says, VOD reviews and all this are coming soon as well. So, look, Mini Jake's thinking about what's going to happen next year after, of course, his time with Fnatic. But yeah, this final sentence, it's tough for it to mean anything other than, it's like track by track, baby, right? Let's get on the Paper X train. So maybe Mini Jake helping those guys at the World Championship. We'll see how Paper X got on, if they can actually win the big one this time. I know that there's some fans who are like, oh, Paper X, please don't win, because then, the Champions curse happens and the team is compromised. But we'll see. Maybe they can win and break the Champs curse. Certainly one of the big favourites, as we know, for the whole tournament. Now, last night there were some big results in challenges. TSM actually destroyed Qubit Academy. This is really impressive from TSM. Timo Tino was absolutely on fire this series, and TSM just demolished them. 13-8 on the Haven, and then the Icebox, which was Qubit's map pick, was a 13-1 demolition job, and everyone got crushed here bad on Qubit. So, look, Qubit, they can't even go to Ascension because they're a Academy team, so it doesn't really matter. But I do think for Qubit, this season is very relevant, right? Sentinels have just, I don't want to say bombed out precisely, but Sentinels had two big games against G2 and then against NRG to close out the Americas. They lost both of them. They ended up coming third. They came third in what looked like a two-team league for Sentinels, right? And yeah, they'll turn up to the World Championship. They've got a doable group. They're playing Giant X, and then on the other side, it's Paper X, and then XLG, of course. But, let's say in a hypothetical world, Sentinels don't get out of the groups. They're going to have to do something for next season, and they would want to look to their Academy team. But it's not like there's been one guy or whatever on the Academy team who's been such a massive standout for them. I think that there was a lot of talk about Redux coming into this year. But if you look at his season in challenges, he's not really had a dominant time. Like, if you look at his rating here, his overall performances, it's been fine, but it's been nothing spectacular really this season for Redux. So I don't think that his stock is necessarily moving in the right direction. So I do wonder what next for that Qubit team. Not necessarily totally over for them yet. There'll still be some more matches for them to play this calendar year, but it's not exactly an ideal way to bow out of stage 3 of the Challengers side in North America. And Envy, they do tend to do this, right? They turn up to the playoffs and they did kind of go God mode here. They did just swipe aside QOR, and this is pretty good competition, really. But Kane Zera, it is hilarious how good this guy is, really, and the fact that he's not old enough to play yet. There will be some duelist players in the VCT Americas next season who are scared for their spot when this guy turns 18, I would imagine. But 13-3 on the Sunset, and then 13-6 on the QOR map pick Ascent. So this wasn't even close. Envy advanced onto the finals, and that's enough to secure their spot as well at Ascension. They're both going to be there. Envy and TSM are both going to at least qualify for Ascension in the Americas, give themselves a chance, and the winner of Ascension will definitely be promoted, as we know, to the Pro League. Now, Envy, if they get promoted, they can't bring along Kane Zero and Ions, right, because they're not old enough. They would have to bring along somebody else instead. There were rumours around Demon One or whether that could be a thing, but whoever wins definitely gets promoted, because the team that lost in the Americas, their spot was 2G, and 2G, by failing to make it to the World Championship, Championship and failing to be placed highly in the playoffs and all this stuff, they ended up getting relegated entirely. G2, of course, the other Ascension team, they're not going anywhere anytime soon, but the winner of Ascension will definitely qualify and get promoted in the Americas. One of the other big dramas was this. So there was a clip last night that went around, and discussions on BBL Esports, looking at their roster. Of course, they bowed out, they were close, but no cigar, failed to make it to the World Championship. And there was some discussion here that Gentlemates could be back in, and potentially BBL could be on the chopping block here. So Gentlemates, of course, relegated, but if there was an organisation that would either pull out or rescinds their partnership agreement or whatever the case is, then it's possible that Riot would have to replace that organisation with another organisation, potentially one who did decent things this season, but of course is finding themselves in the relegation zone. So there was discussion, anyway, that BBL could be gone and Gentlemates could be back in. Now, do we buy this? Do we believe it's possible? I learned a few days ago we might consider Gentlemates a franchise team. Currently, they hold an Ascension spot. The idea would be that starting from next season, the team directly integrates, and but to welcome them, one team would be removed, and it could be BBL. So, you know, some rumours that BBL might either be kicked out earlier than their partnership agreement is up, which would be pretty remarkable, or for other reasons, they might potentially be departing. Now, there was some reaction to this that suggested this is not happening. I don't know what you're talking about. You know, there's some discussion on whether this would be fair to BBL, which definitely doesn't feel like the case at all. So I still kind of doubt this. And Akamaru says in the replies, might make a report on this being false if I can confirm it, because, you know, this guy lies a lot. A lot of their reports are fake, he says. And then he did a tweet. Now, this tweet was this. This is false. BBL will be continuing in the VCT for 2026. Please get real sources when you make reports like this, because it ruins the reputation of all reporters. So this guy tweeted this out. And as I then went to find this tweet again when I was putting the content together for the video, it turns out this tweet's been deleted. So, you know, you can see it right here. If I go to this tweet link, the page no longer exists. So what do you guys think about this, right? Rumours that the BBL might be kicked out or might leave or whatever, and Gentlemates would come in instead. Then we get this guy who does know a thing or two, says, no, that's not true, BBL will say, and then deletes it. So, you know, does that not make it even more likely, maybe, that they will be gone? Because if you've got someone who vehemently opposes it, and then maybe he gets a message to say, oh, actually, this probably is happening, then there's certainly going to be talk about it anyway. So intrigue to your thoughts in the comments below. Let's talk about what's going to happen going into the World Championship. Demon 1 says bonjour. So, who knows, right? Maybe, look, there are roster discussions happening behind the scenes right now. Demon 1's a totally free agent. He can go where he likes. Rocket Bullet says it is time. Puts him in the Carmine Corps jersey. We'll see if that's something to think about. It's certainly been rumoured. These are the rosters that are turning up to the World Championship, and this is what the groups look like if you guys didn't see it yesterday. PaperX XLG, Giant X Sentinels, Liquid DRX NRG EDG. That's a pretty spectacular Group C. Group B is interesting as well because Billy have been quite the force in the Chinese region, so, you know, that could make things real spicy, but you never really know what you're going to get from the Chinese teams internationally. And then Group D is pretty nice looking as well. So I do like the groups here, and they've officially confirmed what the schedule is going to be. September the 12th, which is not far away, is the opening day for Champions Paris, and Sentinels are going to be playing on the very first day of the competition. So this is the full schedule, and it's Group A on day 1. So PaperX play XLG, and then Giant X play Sentinels. That's day 1 done and dusted. The 13th is then Group C. So it goes Group A, then Group C, NRG EDG, Liquid DRX, then Group D on the Sunday on the 14th, DRG T1, G2 Heretics, and then on the 15th, of course, it's Group B with BLG, MIBR, RRQ, Fnatic. So that's the way they've decided to do it, and of course it means that Sen and those guys get, you know, the least preparation time, as it were. But look, Giant X, they made the finals of EMEA. I'm sure that Sentinels have a lot of VOD to review, let's put it that way, on that Giant X team, which they probably weren't necessarily expecting to look at. Then there's a day off, then they play the upper final finals of those games, losers finals, couple of days off before the playoffs then begin, and then of course after many of the teams are eliminated, we get down to the final four and we run out the champion by the 5th of October. So that's your schedule for the Valorant World Championship. It's, you know, a bit of an eyesore to look at, but the point is that it starts with Group A, and Paper X XLG, Giant X Sentinels are of course the big games to kick off the tournament. To intrigue your thoughts in the comment section below. I thought this is kind of remarkable because there have been plenty of players that have won a world championship over the last few years, but many of those players are not going to be at the World Championship again. There's no Simon this year. There is Chichu, Nobody, Smoggy and Kankang. But of all the winners before Edward Gaming, it's only Aspas, it's only Jorgamo, and it's only Ethan who are actually going to be there again, which is kind of crazy to think about, but those are the 7 players that are already world champions attending it yet again. And just before we finish out with it, I thought this is kind of interesting. So Ominous gave some thoughts here on, let's say, being in the Pro League versus being in Challenges, and he just said he reflected on a few things. There's lots of talk about the amount of matches played in the Franchise League, the amount of matches played in Challenges, what does that look like, and he just gives his perspective on it. Last year was my first in Franchise. We played just 11 matches the whole season. That's the bare minimum if you don't make any playoffs or lands, and honestly, it never felt enough, not like our performances deserve better. So I think this is the argument really about the amount of matches played, is that I think most people agree that, like, to play only 11 games feels so few as an like for an entire year to base your season upon that. But of course, if you win some of those, then you can qualify for things, then you get to play more, right? Which is true and fair enough. But equally, to me, it feels far too few anyway, but intrigued your thoughts in the comments. This year, analysing and scouting for Wolves, he's worked on 34 matches. That's more than I had during Bleed's full Ascension winning run in 2023, which was 29 games. So yeah, for Bleed to win Ascension to 29 games, this year Wolves played 34 matches, and he says, like, you might say that's for burnout, but actually he loves it, right? Like, 11 was far too few, left him unsatisfied. This year's more than made up for it, apart from finishing 3rd at Masters Toronto, of course. So thought it was pretty interesting just to hear that perspective really on the dichotomy, because yeah, 11 games if you don't win anything, but potentially up to 34, as he said, 34 games to work on this year. And I guess that's the issue, right? Is that if you do qualify for things, you play loads and loads of matches. So as a result, in order to not make the teams that do qualify everything play so many games, especially because the World Cup is now a thing as well, then maybe you tone it down regionally so they play less. So it is interesting. You look at the top teams, they do play a lot of Valorant over the year because they go to a lot of the international tournaments, but the teams that don't qualify play barely anything. So there's probably got to be a better way to balance that, in my opinion, but intrigued to your thoughts on all of this stuff in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.